you mentioned in the education system. Now, I know this isn't a conversation that you want to have. You wish you didn't have the conversation, but you know that you have to.
Yeah.
What is it that you see that needs to change?
So a lot of the things that in education that are a problem are, well, we had segregated schools 65, 70 years ago, not that long ago. And we're still trying to rebuild from that structure. And honestly, some of our children today are still in somewhat segregated schools. And it's not segregated by law, but it has been through other forms of the way that we have our borders, the way that we have our schooling set up, and it's really been it hasn't been fair. So we don't give all of our children the same opportunities. But something that I think that I can't fix that alone. But something that I can do is in my own classroom, and something that other teachers can do in their classrooms, is make sure that the children in your rooms, the students that you are responsible for, see themselves represented in all of the subjects that you're teaching. For me, specifically in music, showing my students Black and brown composers and musicians and artists. It means when I am introducing literature in my classroom, that my students see children or adults that look like them, so that they can see themselves reflected in that literature. One of my favorite quotes is, literature should be a window or a reflection or a sliding door for children to either see themselves or to see someone else's point of view, or it's a door to let them explore and go through. And that is something I can do, and that is something any educator can do right now.
Right.
Like, you don't need McGraw-Hill to create a curriculum for you to do that.
Right.
And I mean, if you don't have the money to fund yourself a new library, you can go. The public library is accessible and still very, very up to date with books and resources. That's a free resource that any educator can utilize. So that is one thing that I'm trying to do in my own room to kind of dismantle that systematic, we're only going to give the point of view of the white child,
yeah,
or the white man. And I don't know about you, but I don't remember seeing myself in books ever. So that's, and I always wonder, like, what would would a seed been planted about when I was younger if I saw a book that I saw myself in? Like, maybe I would be more of an avid reader, or maybe I would have an interest in this or that if I saw myself. So these are really, and again, it all comes back to that identity. And as an educator, it's my responsibility to plant seeds and instill the love of learning. And that won't happen if your children, if they don't see themselves. They do not see themselves.
Two things I need to say to you. Number one of the questions that I've been asking, and I'm going to ask you this later on, but what is your definition of leadership? Mm-hmm. And the biggest quality, the similarities that I've continuously heard is self-accountability. So the fact that you're looking at the systematic thing that has taken place, and for you to say, this is what I need to do, thank you for doing that, and I hope you took that away, and hopefully more and more people copy that and do the same thing. Secondly, your point that you just made, right? It's so true, because for me, I saw a lot of World War II movies with my dad growing up. And all of those movies, the Japs are this, the Japs are that, the Japs are the bad guys. And as a biracial kid, after watching that movie, if my dad were to went and buy me a plane set of all of the World War II airplanes, in my head, even though I didn't want to, I had to pick who are the bad guys and who are the good guys.
Yeah.
So absolutely. But fortunately for me, I grew up in Japan, and I listened to actual survivors of the Hiroshima bombing. And I listened to how horrific that event was. It wiped out more citizens than any other event in world history. Why aren't we listening to their story and hearing their sadness and feel that empathy so that we can prevent hatred and war from there on out? Why is there still war going on? We should have learned from that experience. So I absolutely agree with you. We have to showcase both sides, or every side. You know, and
every child will benefit. Every person will benefit from learning about someone else or learning about themselves. Like, there is always something to be learned. So to add to to answer your question, what is a leader? A leader is somebody who's willing to learn, listen and learn. A leader is somebody who learns collaboratively. So because I'm a teacher, when I think of leadership, I think of my administrators, and I've had several in the last 6 years that I've taught. And the principal that showed the most leadership, in my opinion, was the one who was always willing to allow herself to grow and wasn't intimidated by that. So, you know, I have this in my school song that I sing to my 5-year-olds all the way until they are in 5th grade. Part of the lyrics is, "We are lifelong learners." And that is something that my principal truly exemplified by every day showing the kids that that's part of who she was too. And it was contagious. You know, I wanted to follow her. I wanted to do whatever she needed because I knew that she valued learning. And that's at the core of education, right? Having a desire and passion for learning. So, and that I think can be carried on not just in the education field. You know, I had a woman who I considered my granny, and she, to me, was somebody who was always willing to listen and learn. And she was a leader because of that. That is one of her characteristics that made her such a leader in my life, was because she was always willing to learn and listen to those, listen to anybody. So those listening and learning equals leader.
So you just mentioned, right, it's not just the education system, right?
No.
Anybody can be a student. I mean, we're all lifelong learners, and when you stop learning, you stop living. And I mean, it's just so exhausting to see people categorize themselves and have to choose a side. You're Republican, oh, you're a Democrat, we have a reason to clash. Oh, you're blue, you're red, we have a reason to clash. You're black, you're white, we have a reason to clash. Oh, you're a female, you're a male, we have a reason to clash. When can we finally get to a point where no matter which side you represent, both sides are willing to listen to the other party, take away from that other party, and make themselves even better because you're able to take their attribute and sprinkle a little bit of yours in it. And I think understanding that, we talked about anybody can do that, but we need to instill that in the children.
That's where
because they're way more they're more open to learn, right?
They're forgiving.
It's like you can't even teach an old dog new tricks anymore. So I'm not giving up on the present, right? But I don't want I care more about the future, right? So parenting is huge. You deal with a lot of parents being an educator.
Yes.
And you educate 30 kids, right? per class, or 20 to 30?
30. I have 360 something children right now that I'm responsible for.
Okay, Charissa's responsible for 360 children, okay? But there's not a lot of Charissas walking around. So, Charissa, what would you tell the parents who are listening to this and what they can do in raising their child and helping them with the bright future that they can get ready for?
I think one of the most important things is to communicate and allow your children to ask these hard questions, we don't talk about that, or we don't see that, or we don't discuss that. Like, let their creative minds ask these questions. And if you're not sure, you have so many resources at your literal thumb tips. Like, there are so many educators, philosophers, civil rights activists, people who know how to talk about these hard topics such as race, identity, and gender with young children. And it is so crucial and beneficial that you start these conversations at home in the safety of your relationship as a parent with your child. If you can establish a safe space to communicate, they will be so strong as an individual and as a learner that they really can conquer and ask and build these bridges with their relationships outside of your home, with their friends, with their cousins, with another child on the playground. If you are able to establish a safe place to communicate and have these hard conversations and address, not ignore these complicated times, you are doing yourself a favor, and you're giving your child the world. You're giving your child the world. Communication is everything. And a brief example, I am a transracial adoptee, which means I am adopted by a white family. So trans meaning two different, and racial, obviously, race. So with me being a transracial adoptee, I have a very different identity than my parents. And one of the reasons why I'm saying communication is so important is I know that my parents love me, and I knew I could go to them for anything. However, as a 6-year-old child, when I was told in my first grade classroom that I could not go on the swings because I was Black, I remember looking down at my arms and being like, well, damn, I guess I can't go on the swings. And I didn't tell my parents because it didn't affect them. So I wonder, and my parents are the most lovely people, and I adore them and I love them, but I wonder if I would have felt safe enough to communicate my identity and my experiences with my parents, how that would have shaped my confidence and my ability to overcome the next form of racism as I got older. And that is why it is so important that we are talking. White parents need to be talking to their white children. White parents of Black children need to be talking. Brown parents, everybody needs to be talking about these issues, because when we don't, we are allowing a chance for things to just be brushed under the rug, and then we will be in the same place that we're at today in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. It is because we are not having these conversations and we are not communicating and allowing our children to communicate. This is why things blow up. And this is why we have such turmoil. And then why some people are like, what? I didn't even know this was happening. We don't see color. We just love everybody. We have to have these talks.
Right.
We have to. And we have to see each other. Mm-hmm. We have to.
And you mentioned not having the courage to have that conversation when you were 6, right? But if parents make it an empathy to listen, have that, or emphasis on having empathy, I'm sorry, if that's the case, maybe the kids will be more inclined to
Well,
express themselves.
it has to be practiced, right?
Right.
So just like a sport, just like an instrument, you have to practice these conversations. And what I'm saying, I don't know if I didn't have the courage. I just really didn't feel like it mattered to my parents because we didn't talk about it and it didn't affect them. They could go on the swings. I couldn't, but it didn't, so like but if we had those conversations about race and identity, I maybe would have been like, hey, so this is what was said to me. What do you think? Like I didn't even feel like there was a need for me to have that conversation. And there is a need. It is one of your utmost responsibilities as a parent to be actively talking about these issues, and that is how you are an anti-racist parent, by allowing these conversations, not dismissing them, or just we don't talk about that, or we don't see that. It's, well, why are you why would you say that, or why did you hear that, or where did you hear that, or what makes you feel that way?
Right.
Or I wonder where this is coming from. Mm-hmm. Giving your kids the opportunity to feel that conversation is welcome and normal.
Yeah.
It needs to be normalized and part of mm-hmm. daily dialogue.
Yeah.
Daily.
And to those of you who are younger who aren't parents that are listening to this, don't dismiss yourself just because you're not parents.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be doing the same thing. For example, when I was a junior in high school, I played on the basketball team. And one day the coach wasn't there and we were allowed to just scrimmage. And the players took it amongst themselves to scrimmage blacks versus white.
Where did you go?
Exactly. They didn't let me play.
Wow.
I sat on the bench and I watched my teammates have a coach-free, fun scrimmage, and they laughed at me because I was neither. And
you were the only one.
And I was the only one.
Yeah.
And I was and I know this interview is you're supposed to be for Charissa, but I'm just mentioning this story because I can relate to her in this. But in that moment, they brushed it off. They thought it was hilarious, and I brushed it off like it was hilarious because I was the new kid and I didn't really have any friends, so I couldn't really afford to lose friends.
Right. This is what
by
I
standing up for myself and calling these guys out. I didn't have the courage. But like you said, if that conversation is being taken place as a child growing up, maybe that moment never would have happened for me. Mm-hmm. And it is what it is. It happened. But that's why I'm mentioning that even if you're not parents, if you're a youngster listening to this, pay attention to how you're treating your minority friends. Mm-hmm. Are you treating them as a human being, or are you constantly cracking race jokes? Mm-hmm. Because even if they're funny and even if they're laughing, they might not be laughing. They might be hurting. So by having that ear and that willingness to listen and learn and glean from one another's cultures, celebrating each other's cultures, that needs to be the norm. I mean, we all listen to each other's music. We all watch each other's athletes and appreciate each other's art. Why can't we appreciate each other when we're face to face?
Yeah.
Makes no sense, but we're just having this discussion so we can make that sense, right?
Yeah.
So, Charissa, a couple more questions before I go, okay? But before I do, let me just acknowledge you again. I acknowledge you for just in a society in which we have people who are fighting the battle of who's right. I'm grateful to have leaders like yourself who are fighting the battle in what's right.
Yeah.
And if we have more and more leaders like that stepping up, we'll be good. And right now it might not seem like it, but this right here, this gives me hope. So you already mentioned your definition of leadership, but what is the ideal, you mentioned utopia, right? What is the ideal world that you see? Because we're both really big on speaking into existence.
Yeah.
So let's foresee the bright future. What do you see?
Well, for me, it always it's surrounded around music, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm also kind of a hippy-dippy with, I really believe that we as human beings are all musical, because some people are like, I can't sing, I can't do this. Everyone can sing. Before you could speak, you were singing. that's baby sing. Before you could walk, you were dancing. So we are artistic and musical in our essence of who we are as human beings. So my utopia would be a place where we are able to be musicers. So musicers are people who are playing together, people who are just sitting back. Someone who is a music maker or music is somebody who's just listening. You know, it would be a place where we could just create and listen and learn and work together. And with all of our unique backgrounds, allowing that space to listen to each other and learn from each other. It is really, and without having that idea of ooh, I want to take that and change, no, really just immersing ourselves in each other and really admiring the differences that each of us has. And just, it is so beautiful when you can do that. So I don't know. And I don't know how that would be achievable or be achieved, but I think one of the things that we can do, and something that's so special that we have here in Southeast Michigan, we have so many pockets. We've got Dearborn, right? We've got a huge Middle Eastern population. Put yourself in a situation where you are the only white person or only black person, or put yourself in those situations where you're forced to kind of be uncomfortable, but then see the beauty in that place of being uncomfortable. Not a lot of people have that opportunity. We literally can hop, skip within 20 miles and be fully immersed in a completely different culture. So go to the Arab American Museum when it's open. Go to the African World Festival in August if it's happening. Go to the Jazz Festival. We have so many opportunities to truly immerse ourselves in people who are different from us. And I challenge you to do it and be uncomfortable. But in that place of being uncomfortable, try and remove yourself and just listen and experience. Just listen and experience. And maybe we'll be one step closer to that place of musicking or making music and being in my idea of a perfect world.
Yeah. And that's proven, right? Because last year's biggest song was Old Town Road.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
country combining hip hop song.
Oh yeah.
Well, how come nobody's ever done that? Right? It's so simple, but it worked. And
you had 5-year-old Arab immigrant children who didn't speak any English. Na na ni na 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 ni na. They're singing it. They didn't know the words, but they knew that melody. Right. So it was not only crossing, a black hip hop singer singing a country song, and then you've got 5-year-old, Arab immigrants singing the song. Right. I mean, it is so, music transcends and moves and can give to. It doesn't matter who you are. You can be connected through music. So, yeah, it is human. It really is. People, I don't want to hear I do not allow any child to say, I can't sing, I'm not this, I'm not. You are. Are you breathing? Are you a human being? Okay, you're musical. Yeah. Sit down. Let's go. Okay. We're going to learn today. You, being a multiracial person, you had to endure your own obstacles, and I'm sure that there was a bunch of them. But you always had to fight that feeling of not fitting in, but also that feeling of I'm behind the 8 ball. I mean, first off, I respect you and admire you for being such a positive individual while overcoming all of that. But what was it that helped you get through? Because I want to talk to the kids that may be going through the same upbringing that you are, that may be feeling that same feeling that you did. What advice would you give to those kids who are going through the same situation as you? So I guess a better way to ask this question is, what advice would you give to your younger self? I'm like, younger self, where are you? I need some help. This quarantine has been really rough on me. But when I think about my drive or my motivation or my motivator, it's really my inner voice. And I'm coming into my adulthood, and thinking about what that really is has kind of like changed. And but just listening to that inner self, and that means you have to take time to do that. So you have to remove yourself from your busy life, and that's what this quarantine did for a lot of people. You couldn't go see your friends, you couldn't go to work, there were all these things you couldn't do, and it forced me to listen to my inner voice. I also was listening to other voices in my head that were, putting me down and pulling me away from my truest self. So you have to be careful and understand discernment, and understand, okay, whoa, those are lies. That's not true. And this is my heart. This is what I need to be following. I also have advice is listening to people who have gone through the walk before you. Find those people, whether it's your grandma or your grandpa or an auntie, or maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's a community member. Find someone who has been through maybe not your exact struggle, but a struggle, and listen to them, reach out to them. And that it's really, that's how you build that community. You can't do things alone. You can't endure life alone. So if you are able to listen to your inner voice and find those people who can help guide you, you can build that community that you need and project yourself forward. And that's kind of what I've had to do throughout my upbringing. At times it was my parents. At times it was a mentor that I had. At times it was a cousin or an auntie or uncle, or a professor, a teacher. Absolutely a teacher. My choir teacher saved my life. Find those people and really cling on to how they make you feel and how they've guided you. And that has been something that's helped me stay grounded and be able to reach and propel forward, because you cannot do it alone. We are not built to live alone.
Right.
We just aren't.
If you don't mind me asking, or if you don't mind sharing, what was, how did your choir teacher save your life? What was the lesson and wisdom that you gained from her?
Him. It was just his enthusiasm for life. I had switched schools because my inner voice was telling me I was not successful, I was not happy, I was not able to fully be myself in my previous school. So my sophomore year of high school, I switched. And in that switch, I found my choir teacher, and he's one of the reasons why I'm a teacher today. He is one of the reasons why I pursued music in college. He helped me with my auditions. He was someone that was a daily joy and a reason for me to get out of bed and just, we have choir today. He just was somebody that really gave me life. And I wanted to be that person for my kids, for my students. So, I can't really think of a specific instance, but it was his daily joy and his daily love that guided me and helped me propel to the next step in my life.
And that's why, I'm such a huge advocate for people finding what it is that they truly love.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean career.
It doesn't have to.
It doesn't have to be. It's such a term lately that's so overused, and it's truly lost its value. But that entrepreneurship term, oh, if you're working a 9 to 5, you're this, and that. It's like, just stop, okay? Because we all, as a society, have to do our part to run this country, to run this civilization. So never ever denigrate somebody else and what they do in exchange of what you do.
Yeah. Don't compare.
Empower others.
Yeah.
You know, but in order for you to empower, you must, like you said, self-reflect and figure yourself out. Make sure that your mind is thinking, and make sure that you're okay, that you're happy. Because even if it's just a hobby, even if it's a career path, whatever, even if it's just choosing what it is that you want to eat for dinner, when you do what you love, you're taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
And if you take care of yourself, you're not angry at anything.
Yeah.
You're actually a happier being. Therefore, you're taking care of the people around you.
Yeah.
And that's what that teacher did for you.
Yeah.
His happiness brought joy to you. So, and that's one of many qualities that you bring to this world, is your positivity and your energy. It's very contagious. I mean, Charissa and I, you know, we met through, you hired me to do a photo shoot for your birthday, and she saw my work online, and she said, okay, so, you know, it was definitely some sort of destiny that took place for us to have this conversation. But the moment, you know, I met you and Tyler and everybody else, you guys represented something positive.
Yeah.
And I made the choice, I want that energy around me. I want to stay in touch with these people because they bring me gratification. So, number one, I appreciate you for being that person. And number two, if you are having a hard time figuring out what it is that you want to do, or figure out what it is that you love, just do that. Just be that happy person that people just love being around.
Find your happiness.
Yes.
Find what gives you life.
How do you find that, by the way?
Oh man. Honestly, right now, it's like the day-to-day thing. So like right now, it's watering my plants, being in my garden, walking my dog, like sitting down and having dinner with my husband, like just like spending time together is right now how I'm finding that joy and that love for life, because like I said, the shutdown and COVID has really forced a lot of us to just kind of be at a standstill. And what I love so much is my career. I love teaching. It is every fiber of my body. I am a teacher. Yes. That's what I do. And it was like halted. And so my world was like, I was completely off my rocker. And so, yeah, I've really had to step out and figure out exactly what we're talking about. What gives me joy? Because I can't do the things that give me joy. So I've had to find, and it takes time. Maybe you try reading, maybe you try an instrument, maybe you try, it's okay to be like, no, that wasn't for me. Yeah. But keep trying, keep living, and keep exploring what gives you joy, what gives you happiness. Because you'll find it. It'll take time, but you...
Yeah, and time, right? I mean, the clock is ticking, so we might as well enjoy it. You know, whether we are good at it or we suck at it, we might as well do it because we love it.
Yeah.
Because we have a certain amount of time on this earth. And that's, hopefully, that's what happens, you know, to anybody who's going to listen to this, or who have actually listened to this conversation. You know, hopefully, we can all just be happy and, you know, be under one race and all of that. But before I conclude this interview, Charissa, is there anything else that you wanted to say to the folks, or is there anything that you wanted to talk about today that you wanted to bring up that's important to you?
I really hope that from this conversation, people take away the importance of learning and not feeling like there's this like level, and like once you achieve this, like you're done. Like we are always able to stretch and grow and be more and learn more and grow more and learn more and grow more. I think about the analogy of trees and how they grow from two ways. They grow from their roots and they grow from their branches. And to be thinking that growth doesn't always look the same. So maybe your roots are growing. and you might not see that or feel that, and that's okay, but they're growing. And then your branches will grow. And maybe it's only one little twig off of one of those branches, but we are always able to extend and grow. And sometimes it's not visible, and that's okay. But just having that mindset of you're always able to change and grow. That's my biggest thing.
Well, that, right, you have no idea how much goosebumps I got from that, because I've never heard that analogy, and that's amazing. You know, I'm definitely going to incorporate that within my life. Hope that brought value to you guys. I know it did, well, at least it did for me, so I'm grateful. But thank you so much, Charissa, for your time today, your knowledge, your perspective. I know we could have talked about more and more things, but I want people to watch this and take the knowledge and wisdom and, take action on it.
Yeah.
So, and I think you brought a lot of valuable wisdom and perspective to the table, and I really, really appreciate you for this and everything else.
Of course.
So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Thank you for listening.
Yes, and to anybody, who loved that conversation, I'm not going to do this, the typical YouTuber subscribe and, hit like. I don't care about that. If you watched it, I'm thankful for that. But I will say, take what Charissa, the valuable wisdom that she gave us, incorporate it into your life, and be that leader that makes an impact in the present and in the future. And if we can do that, her and I will be very, very happy, and I think we all will be happy. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Charissa, again, and to more and more conversations.